All right, so we now have this animation. One of the issues that you have, most of the time when you're dealing with models, going from one program to another program is actually relatively simple because a model is a model. It's these points, and even the textures are relatively the same as well. Of course, comes to worse, you just have to reattach them manually in some way. Animation is a little bit different because, what an IK handle is in here is not what it is in another program. Joints might be handled differently as well. So it's not as straightforward as the rest of it. So for instance, one thing we need to do before we can actually bring this into Unity is we need to bake the animation. All right, so Unity can do this as well, but I'd rather do it in here just to make things a little bit easier. So what you should do though is save your file first and then do a new version, and then just save it as one version because let's say you do the animation, you want to improve on it. We're going to bake the animation, which basically means you won't be able to do anything beyond that. All right. Because Unity will understand these joints fine, but it won't understand is basically our rigging. It won't like that aspect of it. So what we're going to do is bake all of the animation onto the joints themselves. If you look at these joints, you see there's no keys on these, right? If I look at these leg joints, see there's no keys, nothing down here. But there's keys on this which are driving that. Well, it's not going to see, it's going to see these things moving, but it's not going to understand that that's happening. So what we want to do is take the animation that we've made and actually bake it onto the joints themselves, and it'll make it a little bit easier to work with. So I want you to select the highest in the joint hierarchy, basically the root joint, and then you're going to go to Key, and then we want to go to Bake Simulation and hit the option box. I'm just going to go ahead and reset the settings first. Okay. So you see hierarchy, it says selected. That means it's only going to do this one joint. We want to do below, which means it's going to do all the joints that are under it. That's why we wanted the highest in the hierarchy. Channels, all keyable, so it's just going to key everything. The rest of this is fine. Time slider, so it's just going to do what's currently visible. That's also fine. It's going to bake it to you can have animation layers, we're not doing anything with that. Sample rate, so it's going to do it every frame. Smart bake means it'll try to just bake the keys that it needs. I'll just leave it like it is. And then we'll hit bake. And what you're going to see now is that there's a key on every single frame, okay? And that's on every joint. So now this joint itself has keys. In fact, actually, if I were to move this rigging, it doesn't affect it anymore. Because now the joints are moving. They use that as a guide, but the actual rigging doesn't do anything. So for that matter, actually, you can go through and delete the rigging. We don't need that anymore. All we really need is that goose and the other stuff there. So if you go to the outliner, so just go to Windows, outliner, you'll see this little panel over here. You'll see the goose. I see my joint chain. You just want to go ahead and delete everything but these two things, the model and the joints, okay? Now that we've done that and we've got this animation baked, we can go ahead and send this into Unity. Now, technically speaking, when you go from one program to another program, depending on the program, it actually uses what's called an FBX. So you remember we exported out in OBJ? OBJ is just models, not anything else. An FBX actually can hold all sorts of things. It can hold the model itself. It can hold joints, the weights of the joints. I think it might even do blend shapes. It can also do texturing. You can actually bake the texturing into it. It does all these things, which is great, and that's why it's really good from going from one program to another one. The problem is that I always run into is that you have to select your model, or you have to file export, and then say FBX. You have to put the settings just right. The nice thing with Unity, it's sort of built in knowing. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to save this as a new version. So I already saved it once. I'm just going to save it again. So we'll do save scene as. I'm just going to save scene, but my last one was called O2. This one's just called O3. Okay, so I'm just going to save this as O3, and that's it. So just save as a normal Maya file, and then we're going to want to open up Unity. Okay. And then once Unity pops up, you're going to want to open up your game. Okay, so we're going to open up the game. I'm going to pause it just because it's kind of slow to load up. And now we're back in Unity. It's loaded up. So now what I want to do is just bring that model in here. So I'm just going to make a new folder. Let's create folder, and we'll just call it 3D. Right? We'll just put our 3D stuff in there. Pretty straightforward. For some reason, that has to really calculate things to make a folder. I'm going to open that folder up, and I'm just going to drag my model into there. I'm going to minimum, okay. So here's my Dumb Goose 03. That's the one that I was making before. And I'm just going to literally just click and drag the Maya file. Wherever you saved it, just drag it right into here. Okay? And then it will go about importing it. And we actually have to grab a couple of things, but we'll do that first. It might take a second for it to bring it in. But what it's actually doing is it's creating the FBX file format itself. It knows what to do. And so they're always updating, and so it knows the settings. Even though other tutorials will tell you to do an FBX, and they're probably right because you have more control over it. But I always end up putting the wrong settings in, and it doesn't work right. And I'm like, the programs know what they're doing. So I'm just dragging my Maya file directly into it. Okay, so there's my Dumb Goose. But there is going to be an issue with it if you look at it. I'm just going to drag in here so you can see. It's got no textures, right? So I'm just going to delete it. So it needs its textures as well. So I'm going to bring that in here as well. So I have that in this file here. So I'm just going to literally, inside the 3D, I'm just going to click and drag my that image that we exported before out of Sculptress, the image, the textures. It's going to bring in there. Now, by default, it will actually, let me click and drag this in there, it'll actually apply it to it. If for some reason that doesn't work, what you want to do is if you click on the model, okay, but anyways, bring those both in. You need to bring this in either way. That should automatically know that it goes to that, so just be aware. But if it doesn't work, what you'd have to do is this. When you click on the model that you brought in, not the image, you'll see that there's a model section, rig section, animation section, and material section. Okay? And basically, these are all the main components, if you will, the main areas of the 3D FBX that you would bring in. All right? So, if you go underneath materials, you'll see there's an option for a material. So what you'd have to do is right-click, create a material. I'll just make one. Name it something that makes sense so it's not just new materials. And then you see where it says albedo. You would just grab the albedo, drag it in there. Albedo is the color map. So you can see right here. That's the thing. Okay, they just put it on a sphere for now. Then you'd go over here, and when it goes material, you would just drag this material into there. Okay, that is better in some ways because it gives you more control. Because I can make it less or more shiny based off of these options here. But it's just in there, so I don't really care that much. If you want to be able to adjust these other settings, feel free to bring it in there. I'm just not going to bother, so I'm just going to delete it because it seemed to know what it was doing, and I'm fine with that. All right, so select the 3D model, and I'm just going to go to the model, and right off the bat, let's just do this just so that we can see what we're doing. I'm going to click and drag the model into here. It's actually easier just to click and drag. If you drop it in here, who knows where it puts it. If you drag it, it will actually try to stay on the surface. So I'm just going to go like this. Right off the bat, you're going to notice that it's a little bit big. So that's no good. So I'm going to do is click back on here. This is the import settings. You don't want to do it on the model itself. I'm going to do it in where it's in our assets folder. So you'll see scale factor. I'm just going to go ahead and let's do like 0.25. We'll do a quarter of the size. Do 0.25, and then if you scroll down, you'll see apply, and that will shrink it. So that's how you're gonna adjust the scale of it. Let me look at my game, and I can't see it there. All right, let me see my first person controller. Which way is he looking? Okay, he's looking that way. I'm just gonna try and put my goose where I can see it, and game, and I don't know, he might be able to be a little bit bigger. So let's do like 0.35. I want it to be at least, and we'll hit apply. So just kind of go back and forth, look at your game view, and see if it looks the scale that you want, right? I want them to be at least a little bit threatening, so we'll say that that's good. All right, so that's the model. Let me see. We don't have any blend shapes anyway, so we can turn that off. Import visibility is fine. Import cameras, import lights. I don't need any of that. Sort hierarchy by name, that's fine. Mesh compression's off, that's fine. Optimize mesh. Let's see. Index. The rest of that's fine. I'm going to hit apply. Okay. Because it's a Maya scene, if there's any lights in there or cameras in there, it'll actually bring those in with it, which I don't think it did anyway because it was the default scene, but for some reason those were in there. I obviously don't want to bring in lights on my model. That'd be weird. Next is the rig section. You shouldn't have to do anything with that. Occasionally, I've had to switch this to humanoid or legacy. What I would suggest, if it's just not working the way you want, is try these other ones. Generic's probably fine, though. So I'm not going to change anything about that. The materials, also I'm not going to have to do anything in because that is just, it already has the stuff on there, so I'm fine with that too. And like I said, I could just drop my material in there and that would work. The animation is the one that I'm actually going to have to do stuff with. And so right here you can see there's the bake animations, and that should work, but I just baked them myself instead of baking them in here, because that way I know that it's working. All right, so that's why I did that. Okay. And there's a bunch of other options in here as well. And there are ways to actually bring in IK so it understands the IK and it works nice. But I'm just going to kind of skip that. Now, with the animation, if you actually click down here, you can actually watch the animation. So you can see there's our animation right there. Pretty cool, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and pause that. What I want to do is basically just cut this into chunks. So what we're going to do is, so right now, it's if I select take one, I'm just going to change this to, we'll say walk. And let's go ahead and delete that and hit enter. And now this is called walk, and starting at 1 and ending at 42. So right here you can see start and end. So if you remember, it was 1 to 24. 24 is the same as frame 1. So I actually don't want to go to 24. I want to go to 23 because 24 is 21. So now if I hit play, you should see a walk cycle. All right, so you can see there he is walking. Great. Okay. So we'll call that a walk cycle. The other thing I need to do is make sure I turn on loop time. That way when we're in the animator later on, it will just keep looping the animation. That needs to be turned on for things that are loops. Makes sense, right? Okay, let's go ahead and click on this to make another clip. All right, and we'll call this one attack. Right, hit enter, and voila. This will start, if you remember, 26, and it ended at 42. Let's just do 41 because we don't really need 42, and then we'll just go down here. And also, do I want to do loop? Depending on what your attacking is, you might want to do loop, you might not. Like if it's supposed to be just a single hit, you could turn loop off. I'm going to leave loop on. It'll be easier that way. So if we hit play, you can see there's our attack. And then lastly, there is a chance that they could stand, I think. But I don't know that I need that. So what I'm going to do is actually make another animation clip. And I'm just going to call this one stand. Right? Or actually, let's call it idle. Idle's better. Idle. Enter. And I'm just going to make this 42 to 42. And we'll just loop. It doesn't really matter. But it's one frame, so it's not going to do anything. Right? So now we have basically our 3 states. I'm not sure if we're going to need idle. I'm not sure. But anyway, we have the main 2 that we want. All right? And so now we have those clips. Yay! All right. Okay, so that looks fine. Now what you're going to notice is if we actually go to play the game, so if I go to game and I hit play, you're going to see that it's actually not going to work yet. We actually have to hook up the animation and all that. But it's actually going to be pretty similar. So if you look, you see he's just standing there. He ain't doing nothing. All right, so we have to do a couple of things with that to make that work. We have to do one is right now we have this, apply. Oops. Yeah, apply. Whoops. I forgot to, when we were done here, we actually forgot to click apply. So now that I click something over there, it's like, what do you want to do? So make sure you hit apply. Okay, good. Because I clicked over here, it was like, did you want to apply? But anyway, the animation is not going to work yet. Also, right now what we have happening, if you remember, is we have, where are you? The enemy spawn point. We made that thing, and it's spawning, oops, I'm not in scene. It's spawning out the cubes. I'm going to want it to spawn this guy out. So I'm going to have to apply the same things we did to the cubes to this guy instead and use this guy as my way of it doing that stuff. Okay, so basically we got 2 main things to do. We got to get the animation working, and we got to get it also working as far as like it being the new enemy and not the cube.